I've lived in the same house for 35 years. Every creak in the floorboards, every faded patch of wallpaper, every photograph hanging crooked on the walls, it all belongs to me. Not in the sense of ownership on paper, but in the marrow of my bones. This house is where I brought my children home from the hospital. It's where birthdays were celebrated with too much frosting, where Christmas mornings smelled of cinnamon rolls, and where tears were shed after heartbreaks I couldn't fix. My husband, God rest his soul, poured his strength into building the extensions himself. Together, we planted the oak tree out back, the one that now stretches its arms so high it nearly brushes the sky. I thought this house would always be a place of safety, a sanctuary, but lately, it feels like a battlefield. It started after my health scare last year. A mild heart attack, the doctors called it. Nothing life-threatening if you take care of yourself. Still, that single night in the hospital changed how my children looked at me. I saw it in their eyes. Emma, my daughter, looked at me with fear, like she couldn't bear to imagine a world without me. David, my son? Well, he looked at me with calculation. He visited often after that. Too often. At first, I was touched, thinking maybe he wanted to spend more time with me, but it wasn't long before his true intentions began to show. He'd run his hand along the banister and sigh. "You know, Mom, this wood is outdated. Claire and I could replace it with something modern." Or he'd stare at the fireplace like it offended him. "This whole place could be renovated. Open concept. Claire's always dreamed of that." Claire, my daughter-in-law, was worse. She'd walk through the house as if she already owned it, touching the curtains, measuring walls with her eyes, criticizing the old-fashioned decor, always with that patronizing smile. "You've done well keeping this place up, but don't you think it's too much for you now? Wouldn't it be easier to downsize, move into a smaller place, maybe a retirement home?" Her words cut me deeper than she knew. This wasn't just a house. This was my life. Still, I stayed quiet. For months, I swallowed the comments, brushed off the hints, convinced myself I was imagining it, but I wasn't. They were circling me like vultures, waiting for me to get weaker, to give in. And then came the Sunday afternoon that changed everything. We were sitting around the dining table, sunlight streaming through the windows, the smell of roast chicken filling the room. Emma was there too, thank God, sipping her coffee in silence. David leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and spoke as if he were announcing the weather. "Mom, it's time. You should sign the house over to me." The fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. My chest tightened, not from my heart condition this time, from betrayal. I stared at him. "Excuse me?" Claire jumped in, her voice sweet and poisonous all at once. "It just makes sense. You don't need such a big house anymore, and keeping up with it must be exhausting. David and I can move in, take care of things, keep the family home alive. Isn't that what you'd want?" I opened my mouth, but Emma beat me to it. Her voice trembled with rage. "No, Mom, don't listen to them. They don't want to keep it alive. They want to take it from you while you're still here." David's jaw tightened. "Emma, stay out of this. This is between Mom and me." But Emma stood, her hands shaking, her eyes burning. "No, it's not, because I won't let you bully her into signing away everything she's worked for. You're unbelievable, David." The room fell into a heavy silence. David's face flushed with anger. Claire reached for his hand, whispering something under her breath. I just sat there, my pulse racing, staring at my son as though I was seeing him for the first time. That was the moment I realized something bitter and undeniable. David didn't see me as his mother anymore. He saw me as an obstacle. The days after that dinner felt like living under a storm cloud. David barely called except to press the issue further. When he did, His words dripped with false concern. "Mom, I just don't want you to be alone. It's not safe. That house is too big. Don't you think Emma's overreacting?" But I wasn't stupid. His calls weren't about me. They were about the house. Emma, on the other hand, called every night just to check in. Sometimes we didn't even talk about anything important. She'd just ask about my day, tell me about her students at the school where she taught, or remind me to take my medication. Her voice was like a balm after the sharpness of David's. One evening, she came over and found me sitting in the living room, staring at the wedding photo of me and my late husband. "Mom," she said softly, sitting beside me, "you know Dad wouldn't want you to feel pressured. He'd want you to live here as long as you wanted, in peace." I nodded, but inside, doubt gnawed at me. Was David right? Was I too old to manage? Would this house become a burden Emma would inherit later, whether she wanted it or not? But then I remembered Claire's smug smile, David's calculating tone, and my stomach hardened. No, I wasn't ready to let go, and I certainly wasn't ready to hand it over to them. That night, I wandered the house, touching the walls, the banister, the kitchen counter where so many meals had been prepared. As I walked, memories flooded back, good and bad. I remembered David as a boy running through the halls, laughter echoing. I remembered Emma's first piano recital in the living room, the notes shaky but proud. But I also remembered David's teenage years, how he'd grown resentful when things didn't go his way, how he stormed out the night I told him we couldn't afford a brand new car, how he barely came home after college unless he needed money. Emma had stayed close, helping me with groceries, repairs, even mowing the lawn when her father was too ill. The contrast between them was like day and night. But there was another secret buried in these walls, something even Emma didn't know. When my husband died, he left behind a second life insurance policy, one only I knew about. I had invested it carefully over the years, and it had grown into a small fortune, more than enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my days. I didn't need to rely on this house. But to David, the house wasn't just brick and wood. It was his inheritance, his safety net, his prize. And he was determined to take it, no matter what it did to me. Weeks turned into months, and David grew bolder. He stopped pretending. One night, he and Claire came over unannounced, papers in hand. "Mom," David said, his voice tight, "we've already spoken to a lawyer. It's really just a matter of signing over the deed. It'll save time later." I stared at the papers, bile rising in my throat. "Later? You mean when I'm gone?" Claire smiled sweetly, though her eyes glittered with impatience. "Exactly. It's just practical. You wouldn't want things to get messy for Emma, right? This way, everyone knows where things stand." Emma, who had been in the kitchen, stormed into the room. "Unbelievable!" she snapped, snatching the papers from David's hands and slamming them on the table. "Do you hear yourself? She's alive, and you're talking like she's already in the ground." David's face turned red. "Emma, stop interfering. This is between Mom and me." "No," Emma shot back, her voice trembling with fury. "This is about your greed. You've always been like this, David. Always wanting more, always taking, never giving." The argument raged until Claire dragged David out the door, hissing about how Emma was poisoning me against them. When the door slammed shut, Emma turned to me, her eyes filled with tears. "Mom, please, don't let them take this from you. Promise me." I took her hands in mine. "I promise, Emma, I'm not going anywhere, and neither is this house." But even as I said it, I felt the walls closing in. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, Emma's words echoing in my mind. "Don't let them take this from you." I knew she was right, but how could I protect the house from David's relentless greed? And then a dangerous idea formed. What if the house wasn't mine anymore? What if I took it out of reach, not just from David, but from anyone who saw it as a prize to be claimed? I thought of charities, of community shelters, of families who truly needed a place to call home. The more I thought about it, the more the idea grew. Selling the house wouldn't just protect me, it would send David a message he'd never forget. By morning, I had made my decision. For the next month, I worked in silence. I contacted an old friend of my husband's who worked in real estate. I explained my situation, and he agreed to help, quietly, discreetly. The papers were drawn, the buyers found, and everything set in motion. Meanwhile, David kept calling, pressing, even yelling when I didn't agree to his demands. Claire left me passive-aggressive voicemails about how families should stick together, and you wouldn't want to leave things messy for your grandchildren. They had no idea I was already 2 steps ahead. Emma noticed my strange calm, but when she asked, I only smiled. "Don't worry, darling, I'm handling it." Finally, the day came. The house was sold, the money transferred, the papers signed, and I felt lighter than I had in years. That weekend, I invited both my children and their spouses for dinner. I cooked a full meal, set the table, lit candles. It felt almost ceremonial. David arrived looking smug, no doubt expecting me to announce I'd finally caved to his demands. Halfway through the meal, I set down my fork and cleared my throat. "There's something I need to tell you." All eyes turned to me. Emma looked worried. David leaned forward eagerly. "I've made a decision about the house." David's smile spread across his face. "Finally!" I met his eyes. "I sold it." The room bent silent. David blinked. You what?" "I sold the house," I repeated. "It no longer belongs to me, or to you." Claire's fork clattered against her plate. You sold it? To strangers?" Emma's eyes widened in shock. "Mom, you didn't—" I smiled at her gently. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." David's face twisted in fury. "How could you do this? This house is our family's. It was supposed to be mine." My voice was calm, steady. Better strangers than ungrateful family. The aftermath was explosive. David stormed out, shouting that I had betrayed him. Claire called me selfish, accusing me of destroying their future. Emma stayed behind, trembling. "Mom, I can't believe you actually did it." I took her hand. "Emma, the house was never what mattered. Family matters, love matters, respect matters, and I refuse to let greed poison this home any longer." Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom. Thank you for choosing what's right." It's been 6 months since that night. David hasn't spoken to me since, though I hear through the grapevine he's struggling financially. Claire left him, or so the neighbors say. Emma visits often. We laugh, we cry, we sit together under the oak tree out back, remembering the good years. I don't regret what I did. This house was never meant to be a trophy or a bargaining chip. It was meant to be a home. And now it will become that for another family, one that will love it, fill it with laughter, and honor its walls the way I once did. As for me, I've found peace. And I've learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no. I leaned back in my chair that night, the candles burning low, the echoes of David's shouting still lingering in the air. But inside, I felt nothing but calm. For years, I had carried the weight of this house as if its walls defined who I was. But now, I understood the truth. Bricks and wood don't hold a family together. Love does. And when love is replaced with greed, sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to let go. The house may no longer be mine, but my dignity, my peace, and the bond with my daughter, those are priceless. And I'll take that over any inheritance. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, or if you've ever seen how greed can poison relationships, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Polygon of Lies for more powerful, true-to-life stories filled with betrayal, lessons, and shocking twists. Until next time, remember, lies may build walls, but the truth always tears them down.